And the big story in Action News is the dramatic arrest that played out in Terry, New Jersey today.
Schools nearby were put on lockdown while this all played.
On a brutal January morning in St. Paul, Minnesota, the temperature plunges to minus 15 degrees Celsius as a cutting wind tears through deserted streets where only a few weak headlights pierce the frozen mist, and along the roadside 3 glossy black SUVs sit motionless with no license plates, no police markings, and no flashing lights, their engines idling slowly while thick white exhaust curls upward and disappears into the icy air, leaving behind an unsettling sense of purpose and the chilling question of what they are waiting for and who is inside, because the answer is far darker than it first appears. According to unofficial accounts circulating through forums and private groups, approximately 11 federal inspectors are seated inside those vehicles, a quiet mix of FBI agents and officials from the Department of Health and Human Services dressed in plain clothes, heavy winter coats, and low-pulled beanies, deliberately avoiding attention, carrying no visible weapons, and making no sound. Because this is not a dramatic Hollywood-style raid with sirens and shouting, but officially a routine compliance inspection of a state-licensed daycare center in Minnesota. The facility is directed by Amina Farah Hassan, a 45-year-old woman known in the community as a hard-working and devoted childcare professional with a seemingly clean record and no public history of wrongdoing, yet state records widely shared screenshot and reposted across social media suggest she operates as many as 5 daycare centers across the Twin Cities, including Minneapolis and St. Paul. And according to registration figures frequently cited by online investigators, more than 820 children are recorded as being under care at these locations every single day, a staggering number that automatically triggers massive streams of state and federal subsidies flowing in consistently like an endless river of public money. And troublingly, this was not an isolated situation, because months earlier, posts within Somali American community groups and investigative forums claimed that other centers linked to the name alley in South Minneapolis had already been quietly raided, suggesting the presence of a smooth, discreet, and extremely efficient business model designed to extract government funds without drawing immediate attention. And over a period of roughly 4 years, from 2021 to 2025, rumors estimate that the total amount of money moving through this alleged network may exceed $2.8 billion, a figure so enormous it forces many readers to pause and reread in disbelief. Yet when the inspectors finally step out of their vehicles and approach the front door of the first facility on their list, the scene turns deeply unsettling, because everything is silent, with no parent arriving, no children in sight, no laughter echoing through the halls, and not a single sound of a child crying anywhere nearby. No stroller wheels rolled outside, and the windows were pitch black with curtains pulled tight, making the building feel abandoned. Despite sitting in a busy residential block, the team leader produced a master key issued under protocol, unlocked the door, and stepped inside, where freezing stale air rushed out carrying a musty scent that suggested the space had not been open for months, and an immediate sense of wrongness settled in like a quiet warning. Toys, blocks, teddy bears, and toy cars sat perfectly aligned on shelves, yet every surface was coated in a thin, even layer of dust untouched by small hands, and nursery cribs stood fully assembled with clean mattresses and stiff white sheets so new they showed no impression of a child ever sleeping. They're truly strange and deeply abnormal. An attendance board hung on the wall, carefully filled in with blue ink, every child marked present, every name recorded with precise check-in and check-out times, yet the room itself felt lifeless, with no smell of milk, no diapers, no scuffed floors, no echo of running feet. According to figures shared widely online, this single center alone had collected more than $46 million in taxpayer subsidies over the past 12 months, yet there were no photos of activities, no medical records, no worn toys, no stray socks, no proof that even one child had been there that day. Inside the director's office, a small room with an old desk and a swivel chair, investigators uncovered something that stunned them: 2 thick hardcover binders containing the names of more than 700 so-called virtual children, later labeled ghost children. Page by page, the operation revealed chilling precision. These were not random entries, but full synthetic identities built to mirror a real system, using stolen social security numbers purchased on dark web markets, numbers taken from past data breaches paired with counterfeit birth certificates printed illegally, complete with forged signatures, red stamps, and embossed seals. An entire population of children that existed only inside state payment databases. Whispers in investigative circles claimed this scheme was tied to plans to divert nearly $250 million from non-profit programs meant to feed hungry children, money intended for milk meals and warm clothing rerouted elsewhere. But the most disturbing discovery came from a steel safe bolted into the concrete floor. When a forensic locksmith opened it, they did not just find ledgers, they found cash. Atop the stacked bundles of cash sat 5 dense packages stamped with a black scorpion emblem, the widely recognized symbol associated online with the CJNG cartel, one of Mexico's most feared criminal organizations, and in the instant inspectors reportedly grasped the magnitude of what they were facing, because this no longer resembled routine welfare fraud or a small-scale scheme to siphon a few million for personal gain, but rather what some investigators and online analysts now speculate could be a full-scale money laundering node for a transnational criminal network. If those claims hold, Amina Farah Hassan was not operating daycare centers to care for children at all, but may have been managing what functioned as a shadow banking operation fueled entirely by American taxpayer funds, money drawn from programs designed to support low-income families and feed hungry children, money rooted in national compassion and trust, and for many observers, misusing funds meant for starving kids crosses into something far more severe than financial crime. The inspection quickly escalated into one of the most serious investigative scenes in recent years as federal auditors began combing through licensing codes, transaction logs, and facility records. By mid-morning, what emerged defied basic internal controls, and common-sense documents showed a relative, Samir Abdi Hassan, listed as co-director overseeing multiple locations, simultaneously with overlapping schedules, impossible workloads, and duplicated authority. Children's birth dates appeared in bulk repetitions, sometimes dozens of children across different facilities sharing the exact same date, residential addresses repeated across cities, and even appeared on opposite sides of the Mississippi River, patterns that investigators say strongly suggest synthetic data rather than clerical error. As speculation grew, the press and online community framed these allegations as only the surface of a much wider fraud probe unfolding in Minnesota state. Known for high welfare subsidy rates, public reporting circulating online now claims that 92 individuals have been charged so far, with 82 identified as Somali Americans, though officials caution investigations remain ongoing. Between 2021 and 2025, the total reimbursements tied to this network are widely rumored to approach $2.8 billion, with some estimates even higher, numbers so extreme it forces repeated verification during peak months. Deposits allegedly exceeded $74 million in just 30 days. Funds moved through 43 mule accounts before redistribution, with less than 4% traceable to legitimate expenses. No major food supplier contracts, no consistent rent documentation, no verifiable payroll records. Instead, financial patterns suggest systematic cross-border movement, funds transferred overseas in carefully structured batches kept below federal reporting thresholds. A known method to evade detection. One account alone reportedly processed $312 million in under 9 months while paying no employee salaries at all, pointing not to childcare operations but to a billion-dollar laundering machine hidden behind daycare walls. Not a single salary payment appeared anywhere in the records, as funds instead flowed outward to East Africa, primarily Somalia and Kenya, then into Middle Eastern accounts in the UAE and Lebanon, and onward to shell companies registered in Mexico, entities that existed only on paper and had no real operations. And according to online sources, the operation survived not because it was hidden, but because it appeared perfectly ordinary, almost aggressively normal, to the point where the absence of mistakes itself became suspicious. Reports vary, but roughly 78 individuals were charged, with some sources stating 72 were Somali origin, and behind flawless paperwork with zero clerical errors, investigators believe a highly automated financial machine was draining billions from the American welfare system. Deeper analysis revealed the network had orchestrated elaborate deceptions to mislead neighbors, auditors, and surprise inspectors as digital file recovered from Amina's computers exposed folders labeled Simulation Shift, which outlined rotating schedules of hired stand-ins, likely local community members, or paid outsiders tasked with parking cars during early morning drop-off hours and late afternoon pickup windows to simulate parental traffic. Further adding to the illusion, investigators found outdoor speakers concealed in bushes and fences looping pre-programmed 8-hour audio tracks of children laughing, crying, and lullabies playing continuously throughout the day, while a stockpile of old car seats was shuffled between vehicles to create the visual impression of active child transport. It was effectively a Hollywood-level production built for a single audience. State inspectors conducting spot checks, every element designed to mimic a thriving daycare environment. By evening, the inquiry escalated rapidly from financial auditing to active pursuit of criminal leads, and at exactly 11:58 p.m. a federal prosecutor authorized a coordinated Operation transforming the case from inspection to full-scale enforcement. Within minutes, teams were deployed across Minneapolis and St. Paul, executing simultaneous raids on all 5 daycare centers connected to the network, along with 12 affiliated offices believed to function as accounting and administrative hubs. While the State Department of Children, Youth, and Families issued no immediate public statement, the moment agents moved in, the financial system reacted, instantly triggering what investigators described as a red alert contingency as funds began moving at extreme speed, and in less than 18 minutes, more than $96 million was pushed through pre-built financial escape channels designed to collapse after use, strongly suggesting an overseas operator had detected federal intervention in real time and activated an emergency shutdown protocol. Then confirmed intelligence pushed the operation into full emergency mode. The surveillance footage showed Amina Farah Hassan leaving her residence hours earlier, carrying a small suitcase of face calm and controlled, while automated license plate readers trace her vehicle moving south, suggesting either a border route or access to a private airstrip. And maritime logs soon added another layer, revealing a mid-sized yacht scheduled to depart before dawn, registered under a shell company, indicating a coordinated escape was already underway. But as a search widened, analysts uncovered something far more disturbing, because by 2:18 a.m. encrypted communication monitoring flagged a site roughly 30 miles outside the city in a suburban industrial zone officially listed as abandoned, on tax records inactive for years, and paying no property taxes. Yet utility data told a completely different story, with nightly electricity spikes reaching hundreds of kilowatts and water usage exceeding 90,000 gallons per day, figures impossible for a vacant property. And at 3:36 a.m. aerial drones and helicopters confirmed sustained activity, trucks arriving and departing on fixed intervals, exhaust plumes rising from concealed vents, and movement patterns inconsistent with storage, suggesting this was not a simple warehouse but potentially a large-scale production facility, allegedly financed with misappropriated welfare funds. By 12:21 a.m., the final authorization was issued, ordering immediate tactical entry as floodlights ripped through the darkness and SWAT units advanced on multiple access points, revealing a structure that no longer resembled an industrial shell but a fortified compound with thick concrete walls, reinforced steel doors, and surveillance cameras covering every angle. The first breach was executed without warning as controlled charges peeled back the primary steel entrance, and when operators moved inside, they realized instantly the environment was wrong. The air was not just warm but heavy and industrial, signaling machinery recent operation, and something far more complex than anyone had initially anticipated. The air inside was toxic, reeking of harsh chemicals and agents, reported a sharp metallic taste the instant the seal was broken, a classic indicator of vaporized compounds lingering in the space, as the walls revealed rows of industrial scrubbers running at full capacity, designed to mask chemical signatures from thermal satellites and surveillance drones, while conveyor belts continued moving uninterrupted and digital production counters climbed by the second. Yet beyond a narrow side corridor, the teams encountered the true human cost of the operation. Inside a pitch-black dam holding cell, they discovered 61 people, 17 identified as U.S. citizens, and the rest from multiple countries, likely victims of trafficking, several of whom had been reported missing 6 to 9 months earlier. They sat huddled on bare concrete floors, severely malnourished, trembling in panic, with hollow eyes. One man's pulse barely exceeded 40 beats per minute, signaling extreme physical collapse. And these individuals were not merely detained labor, they had been rendered nearly untraceable, their fingerprints deliberately burned away with acid, a brutal cartel tactic meant to prevent identification in case of escape, an insurance policy against exposure. As rescue units rushed the survivors out, evidence teams pushed deeper into production coal, where even seasoned officers were shaken by what they found. Records showed misappropriated daycare subsidy funds used to purchase precursor chemicals sourced from China and India through smuggling networks, with documented purchases exceeding $1.4 billion in just 18 months, an almost incomprehensible figure. The facility were producing an estimated 32 to 38 tons of fentanyl per day, alongside more than 70 tons of cocaine weekly, forming a terrifying closed loop in which government welfare funds were laundered through child care programs converted into drugs that devastated communities, which in turn increased dependence on welfare programs, feeding the cycle further. By 4:19 a.m. the scale was undeniable, spanning 4 underground levels equipped with sealed laboratories, advanced ventilation shafts, and massive raw materials storage, and one internal ledger listed weekly street market output valued at over $3.2 billion. As dawn light filtered faintly through small reinforced windows, the entire complex was finally secured. The silence afterward felt crushing, with only the soft click of handcuffs and low murmurs between agents breaking the stillness, and by 10:26 a.m. federal press conferences were already underway inside a high-security building in downtown Minneapolis, where officials confirmed total financial damage to taxpayers exceeding $4.3 billion, money intended to support vulnerable families that never paid for a single meal. Daycare slot or winter coat, and investigators estimated that more than 68,000 low-income children across the state lost access to legitimate daycare services as funds were siphoned into this criminal network. Real providers who followed the rules, paid staff, and bought food were forced to shut down because they could not compete with operations that had no genuine labor or supply costs, leaving some struggling neighborhoods with licensed daycare capacity reduced by nearly 22%. And what emerged was not a system that failed to notice, but one that appeared to look away. Approvals became automatic, oversight turned into paperwork, theater forms were checked, but reality was ignored, and in a welfare system optimized for speed and access, repetition was mistaken for trustworthiness. This case forces a hard look at a structural weakness where the drive to move money quickly reduced verification depth, and the ghost children scheme exploited the very compassion meant to protect families. Investigators believe the network understood that. Officials feared asking difficult questions, worried about accusations of bias or political impropriety, and that hesitation was weaponized to steal billions. A case surrounding Amina Farah Hassan suggests that the most dangerous threats do not always resemble stereotypical criminals, but often appear as respected community figures, well-dressed, polite, meticulous on paper, smiling, as they quietly drain the future in plain sight. The factory has been shut down, assets frozen, and multiple arrests made. Yet a haunting question remains: how many other empty facilities are still collecting millions while real children go without care? How many similar feedback loops exist in other states like California, New York, or Illinois? And how many ghost children remain buried inside databases waiting to be counted while no one is truly watching? The lesson here is simple and uncomfortable. Kindness should never be allowed to operate without scrutiny, and compassion must be matched with vigilance, because when transparency disappears, abuse follows. And we should never be afraid to question situations that look too perfect to be real, since silence becomes a form of complicity. When our tax money, yours and mine, is potentially turned into a weapon for crime, what we have just walked through is a haunting hypothesis that stretches from silent, dust-covered daycare centers to an alleged industrial-scale drug operation hidden in suburban shadows, involving billions in public funds meant for poor children, allegedly transformed into a laundering system that may have supported fentanyl production, a substance killing tens of thousands of Americans every year. The story raises images of ghost children existing only in databases, safes packed with cash, and real human beings trapped like modern slaves. And even if only a small fraction of these claims turns out to be accurate, it would represent far more than fraud. It would be a direct attack on the most vulnerable children and the future of an entire nation. So the real question now belongs to you: is this a genuine conspiracy unfolding in plain sight, or a rumor amplified to shock and provoke our Minnesota and the broader American welfare system being exploited at this scale? And how much of this story do you believe? 10%, 50%, or nearly all of it? And if it is true, what should come next? Comprehensive audits, legal reform, stricter oversight, or something entirely different? Share your thoughts below, because this conversation matters, and staying engaged is how truth eventually surfaces. Thanks to everyone who stayed until the end. I'm genuinely waiting to hear your perspectives.